I'm Dr. Eleanor, and I've been involved in the human design community and work since 1996. And for those of you who don't know me, in 1999, I became Ra's legal business partner, and he tasked Marvin, my husband, and myself with validating the human design system scientifically. My training is as a social scientist and clinical psychologist trained at University of Chicago, actually in psychology, sociology, anthropology, and biology. So with that background, I began researching and did the statistics on 30,000 cases using astrological and social science research. And I found that some of what Ra had said was absolutely wonderful. And the body map held. But much of what the guts of the science showed was that there was some faults with the system. So I expanded the system using astrological calculations and developed a system that tracks to psychological research, physiological research, social scientific research, developmental psychology, and anthropology. So I have a system that has been proven. And between 2000 and the current time, I've validated my readings on 15,000 charts. So what I'm going to present to you today is some of my work on the Tree of Life. The title of this presentation is the Self-Center and the Paths of Intelligence in the Tree of Life. So I've created a document with Cindy's help to show you the correlations and the meaning of the self-center and how it relates to the Tree of Life. And I wanted to have a screenshot of the Tree of Life in here, and we failed to put that in. So for those of you, well, I'll just show you what this is. This will be enough for you. I'll make this image bigger. I use a system based on the mandala of synthesis. Now, what Rod told us when he was given the system was that the mandala was a synthesis of the Tree of Life, chakras, astrology, and the I Ching. When I was researching the body map, I found that the dream design, the spiritual world, which was a lunar calculation for an animal who is dreaming, and I needed the physiology of an animal when they were sleeping. So as an astrologer, I used logic. The mental world is calculated at 88 solar degrees before birth and birth. The dream design of a mammal is calculated at 88 lunar degrees before and at birth. So I figured that in order to differentiate at the most nuanced level of a mammal, I would need to use lunar minutes. And when I did that, I found that the physical world chart differentiated my twin kittens. That was pretty profound. because it also showed the sleep design, the dream design of a mammal. And I was given and downloaded the emotional world. So we have a 64 gate matrix, we have a 15 gate matrix, we have a 25 gate matrix. The mental, spiritual, and physical world matrices were given to us by Ra. I confirmed with Ra before I broke contact with him that there was another matrix that was the matrix through which we channel information as channeled information like the human design charts were. What was the mechanism, I asked, by which we channel information if it's not just the mental world? And I got the emotional world. So I'll show you these in a bigger format. What we're going to focus on today is the self center. Note that in the self center, there are 8 gates or hexagram activations. Those 8 correlate to the tree of life. I'm going to go grab my tree of life so I can just show it to you. This is a model of the tree of life. And what you can see is in the center, we have a circle that says beauty. It's the 6th of the what are called Sephirah, or like chakras. And in the tree of life, there are 10 of them. The self center in the tree of life is the dividing point in the ascension up the tree. Now, I was trained also as a Jungian analyst, and in Jung's collected works, he talks about the process of self-actualization or individuation, as Jung called it. What that means is that we move through developmental sequences in our lifetime. And as we do, we must complete certain tasks. So it's like ascending through phases of initiation, which we've read about, at least I've read about, in the esoteric literature. And in my psychological clinical work, it's very clear that if somebody gets stuck at a certain stage, it's difficult for them to move on and beyond. So in my work with the noble energy maps, as I call them, because as most of you know at this point, I work with an integrated body map that includes 8 different time frames that correlate to developmental times in early human development. And my hypothesis was that because a baby is considered a neonate until they're 3 months of age, and babies do not reach for objects until they're 3 months of age, my hypothesis was that looking at those charts would give us a more complete picture of the consciousness development of a human being, because we're not frozen in one moment in time, let alone being frozen in the mental world. I mean, that's not where any of us, I think, want to live our lives. So this is the mental world. Now, the mental world has 64 gates, and those gates are not all in all the matrices. As a human being, they're always active in us. Even if we have nothing defined, we are a living, breathing, 64-gate matrix human being. This is the physical world. Now, the physical world is very interesting. And I want you to see that it's a 25-gate matrix. And notice that from the physical world, we have two channels coming out of the self center. The 15-5, which is in every world. The 25-51, and you'll get to see which worlds this has in common. So then we move to the spiritual world. It's a 15-gate matrix. And notice, it has no solar plexus. So spirit is not concerned with emotional reactivity. That's not to say that spirit can't feel, but it is not emotionally reactive. So notice what's there. In the emotional world, which is a 33-gate matrix, we have the crown to the ajna to the throat through two of the three channels. And then we have the 17, which becomes a portal to that world. We have another portal, the 54, and you can't see it, but the 59 is green and it's color-coded for the astrology. So the 59 in Virgo is a portal to the emotional world. Now I'm going to pair them for you because what's really important to note is the transformative process that we live in and go through. This is, oh, I'll have to get rid of this. Okay, this is the mental world and the physical world. Notice that both of them have the solar plexus. Very important in reading charts to know which world has which centers, because we are here in the mental and physical world with emotional reactivity. And notice also that there's no ajna in the physical world or crown. The physical world is the first entry of when we feel things. That's why we have galvanic skin responses. We have galvanic skin responses because a lot of our emotional reactions are unconscious. And when you make them conscious, using your mind and using your higher consciousness in the emotional world, you transform emotion into spirit. Now, let's see, can I, I guess I have to, whoops, this is bizarre. Why can't I scroll?
You might need to show your outline again.
Yeah, I will. Show, enter, I can enter full screen. And what, it's not scrolling for me. Okay. I have to stop the share for a minute so I can deal with my document, which now closed. Sorry, folks. If you have any questions while I'm doing this, oh, I cut off. I lost my feed.
I can still see you.
Can you?
Mm-hmm.
Where did it go?
You're still here.
Okay, good.
See your
That's a
Zoom.
relief. Okay, I'm going to move it out of the way. Okay.
Your computer.
No, my computer didn't die. I just have to get this. Okay, let's do a slideshow. No,
Slideshow make it a little more difficult to get to where you want
that's what
to.
I'm thinking.
So if you go back to your original view with your,
Oh, this, I don't have the right document here. Hold on. I have to open it from what you sent me because I didn't save it.
oh, okay.
Save it.
On the upside, I know what goes in the blank slide now.
Yeah, okay, so let's see. I don't know what I need to do here. I'll view the slide sorter. No, I'll view the presenter view. Oh, this is not. Okay, I think I am. Oh, man, this is not good. Okay, I'm just going to do it this way. And I will go back to Zoom. Now I will try to share my screen. Okay. Okay, so I showed you the spiritual and the physical world. No, I didn't. I showed you the mental and the physical, the emotional, the mental and the physical. And then the spiritual and the physical become where it's really interesting. Because in the spiritual and physical world, what you can see, and it's very important, is that between the sacral center and the root, there is only one channel in common, and that is the 5342. So the importance of this is that what happens in the physical world is here to be transformed spiritually. And that means that emotions are here to be transformed spiritually when you're emotionally reactive and not in a place of love and peace and joy. And you can see that in the spiritual and emotional worlds, between the two, you get all three formats between the sacral center and the root. And I'm telling you that because in looking at the self center, it is important to note that the 15.5, which exists in all worlds, in all species of living beings, that we are here to be the maximum self that we can be. And once we go through refining the emotional vehicle and getting rid of false beliefs, we move in the tree of life, which Cindy put into your chat in the Zoom call. So if you look at the tree of life, you will see that what I'm going to be talking about today is all of the 8 that coming out of the self center. And you want to keep in mind that when it goes between the self and the sacral center, and you are transforming it with your consciousness, that's when you are in a higher state of consciousness and you are moving up the ladder in terms of yourself. Here is an illustration of the 8 gates out of the self center. So you're all human design people, so this should be very familiar to you. The first hexagram is the creative self-expression. I'm going to take you through all 8, and I'm going to show you the paths of intelligence. I will tell you what those paths mean and how you can use them in terms of your consciousness. So keep in mind the keywords. Hexagram 1 is creative self-expression. Hexagram 13 is fellowship of man, the listener. 25, innocence, spirit of self. 46, pushing upward, determination. Second hexagram, receptive, direction of the self. 15, modesty extremes. 10, treading or behavior of the self. And 7 is army or role of the self. I then broke them down. By looking at the self center, you can see that there are 1, 2, 3, 4 of the same upper trigram. And you have 4 of the upper trigram that's all yin. So 4 yang, 4 yin. It is the lower trigrams in the self center that change. That's pretty interesting because we identify the upper trigram as the transpersonal and the lower trigram as more related to us personally. And notice also, whoops, that in the self center, we have the cardinal signs, and we have the fixed signs. The mutable signs in astrology are not there. So that gives a message that something going on in the self center is extremely important on a higher level of consciousness so that we can become more than just a mental world being. And we broke these down. So you have all of the elements, you have all of the signs, and you know whether they're yin or yang hexagrams. And this is another way to look at them. 4 yang, 4 yin, as we would expect. And now I'll get into the didactics of the tree of life and the gates of the self center. We're going to start with channel 1-8. Now, what you know about channel 1-8 is generally that it's a creative and inspirational channel coming out of the self center. It also happens to exist in the spiritual world. The only channel from the self to the throat in the spiritual world. And it's associated with the moon in Tarot and in the tree of life. It's and the So in noble energy or human design, it's the path is a yang energy. It's a strong energy, and it represents creativity, leadership in the creative, and it's where you get to express your true self, your true creative self. And note that it is in the spiritual world. So when you dream, when you sleep, uh-oh, how could I be? When you sleep and dream, you are in the spiritual realm. This path is a path designated by the High Priestess card. It is a card that is related to the uniting, mediating intelligence. When we're separated and we're not in that unifying intelligence, we feel lost. We don't feel quite like ourselves. And what I wrote for this path of intelligence when I was studying the Tree of Life was, I am the uniting, mediating intelligence, carrying the truth of the one self into manifesting form by living, knowing it is thy, not my, will be done. The path represents the self's connection to the divine will and to cosmic creativity. It's not personal. It's beyond personal. It may be personal, but if you're creative and you think it's personal, do a deep dive into yourself and think about how what you've expressed creatively is expressing your highest purpose. The highest purpose that you have will not be something you think about. It will be something you know, something you feel. And it will be profound. Whoops. Okay, so that's key 2. And the next is the 731. And we're going to go around counterclockwise. So notice that in the 731, compared to the High Priestess, the High Priestess was Scorpio and Taurus Gemini. Let me give you a little astrology here. Not all of you are astrologers. Scorpio, and all Scorpio, is the ruler in astrology of the 8th house. The 8th house in astrology is consciousness, subconsciousness, reincarnation, spirituality in terms of psychic kind of ability. The 9th house is spirituality in terms of values and religion and superconscious. But the 8th house is much more a inner job, where it's not looking outside, it's looking up. It's looking to your own spiritual informer. And Scorpio is intense. Its ruler is Pluto. And interestingly enough, we now have Pluto moving into Aquarius. So expect some unusual happenings psychically. And those of you who are psychic, expect to take it to a whole other level. And the throat center, you have the Taurus Gemini. So it's fairly open. When we get to the 731, it's all Leo. It's really strong. It is in the world card, which we were studying in my classes. It's the lion. It's an important, a very important channel. And in human design, it's the channel of leadership. You're a natural leader and you use your position generally to empower others, and you want always to lead with integrity. And it's a card, it's a channel, it's a gate, the 731, that is disciplined. Generally, it will be collective in the way it operates because you're leading other people and you're leading them ideally to a higher spiritual awareness. Note that while the hexagrams are in Leo, the astrological association with the lover card is Gemini, communication. So if you're going to be a good leader and use your position as a leader, you want to use this path of intelligence, which is a path called the disposing intelligence. And what I wrote for it is, I am the disposing sensible intelligence, living in truth of the oneself as it expresses and aligns in my manifesting life. So think about that. Something coming out of the self center is telling you to make sure that when you take action, if this happens to be a manifesting channel for you, you want the focus of that to be on action that is right action, and it is structured in a way that aligns it in a very joyful and beautiful way. It's the lover card. You want it to honor your highest purpose. All of us has a high purpose. And in a book called The Highest Goal by Michael Ray, who taught at Stanford, he believed that by the time children were 11 years old, they had an inkling of who they really are and what their life purpose is. So if you're not sure what yours is, take some time, go inside and see where you've been led. Use the 731, not just in terms of external leadership, but also in terms of internal leadership. Where were you led to go in your life? Where did you lead yourself? Use this to self-reflect and self-direct. If there's any questions, feel free to raise your hand and you'll come up to the top of the screen and I'll be able to see it, I hope. So if any of you want to ask questions or say anything, feel free. Okay, let's see. Oops. There's a repeat here. Let's see what I can do.
Try Control Z, see if you can get rid of it. Well, don't do it now.
Ah, okay. So the next one we're going to do is, am I in the right place? 731 is the 10th gate, which connects to a channel that's the most complex channel in the body map. It's the 10, 20, 34, 57. So it's combining the mental world, which has all of them. The 57 is in the spiritual world. The 3410 is in the emotional world. And the 20 is also in the spiritual world. So it's combining three worlds. And the physical world is only activated through the mental world in this path. There is no physical world, physical biological world activated in this combination of hexagrams. This channel is written, you're highly sensitive to people and to your environment. Honor your knowing and be courageous and visible. Align with your inner values. When I see someone who has the 3410, I know that that person knows who they are. And when they have the 3410, when they know what they know because they know it, and nobody can tell them they don't know it, they need courage to stand up for themselves. Because if they don't, they're not happy. And if you have a child with that channel, that child is not stubborn. That child knows what's right for him or her. And you want to honor that. It is called the 22nd path of intelligence or the faithful intelligence. What are we being faithful to? It's in Libra. Libra likes balance. Libra likes harmony and aesthetics. So here what's happening is this tarot card, Justice, which is balancing the scales like in Libra, a cardinal sign. And notice the astrological associations with the hexagrams. Gemini in the throat, Capricorn for the role you're playing, Libra for your intuition, and Sagittarius for the 34 coming out of the sacral center. So if you look at the astrology of the whole channel and you think about the 22nd path of intelligence that wants all worlds to be included, to be considered, to be taken into account before you make a spiritual decision. This adding in of the tree of life brings a whole other dimension to the body graph, even if you're only using the human design body graph. What I wrote for this path of intelligence is I am the faithful intelligence, a living expression of the one life breath in all aspects of my life and inspiring all beings to its presence. So if you have this whole channel, and I know some of you who are here do, because I've read many of your charts, you are here to be a role model of consciousness and to bring consciousness into your life. And when you do, to honor it, be faithful to it. If you don't, what does the Justice card tell us? If you are out of alignment in this path of the self, things are going to happen that challenge you to get back in alignment. Going to the next slide, I hope. No, 731 we did. This, oh. Is that right? Yes. We go to the 15th path of intelligence. I mean, the 26th path of intelligence, the channel 515. 515 is the only channel in the whole body map that exists in all worlds. The 15-5 is in Sagittarius for the 5 and in Gemini Cancer for the 15. The 15-5 is really telling you that you must consider what's right for yourself in order to align and to be in the flow. Now, the 15-5 is really interesting because it exists in all worlds. And the 5 is the gate of rhythm and timing. So if you have this whole channel or a piece of it, you wait and you wait and you wait until you know because you know, if you're living out of the truth of yourself. Astrologically, it is paired with the Devil card, which is in Scorpio. It's very interesting to think about that because what the Devil card represents is the breaking down of old bonds within the self, that you must let go of things that do not feel right for you, that do not have a good sense of timing for you. And channel 15-5 says you align with energy that feels right for you and has a good sense, and you have a good sense of timing. Now, in the 26th path of intelligence, which is which pairs with Scorpio in the Devil card, I wrote, I am the renewing intelligence, freed from the delusion of separateness and embracing the cycle of life as a unifying consciousness in all spheres. Oh, did I do this? No, this is the Devil card. Yeah. Until you let go of those false beliefs that keep you stuck, you cannot truly ascend to higher consciousness free of distortion. And that's important if you are trusting your higher self, because you want your higher self to speak the truth to you, and you don't want your mind second guessing. The next path, am I right here? Wait a minute. 2. We're going to the second gate. When I see a chart and the person has the 214, that tells me a great deal. It tells me that that person needs to always check that they're going in the right direction for their inner self. I'm just admitting a couple of people who were not in the room. Okay. So the channel 214 is in the body maps between Scorpio and Taurus, 2 fixed signs. Now, notice that the 14 is a strong yang energy, whereas the 2 is the most receptive energy in the whole body map. So what that says, to me at least, if we read the astrology with the hexagrams, is that when spirit speaks to you, as it does in your gut, and you feel it in yourself, you must listen to spirit, or it's going to bite you in the butt, to put it mildly. And this card is the Temperance card. Let's see if I can show a little bit more of it. Maybe if I undo this, I can get rid of this formatting, and then you can see the whole thing. So the Temperance card is so important. Notice the eagle and notice the lion. And unlike the World card, it doesn't have the other two figures. The figure is here in the card itself. You have 1 foot in the water and 1 foot out. You have the Scorpio and you have Leo, which is really interesting because that's the part that you need to integrate. And notice that there's a rainbow above. You're looking to higher consciousness. Yeah. You say something? No? Okay. So the channel is, you are at your best when you honor what is right for you. What I tell people who have the 214 in their human design or noble energy maps is to do a meditation using clean language, where they're asking if they're going in the right direction, if they're facing in the right position, and in a more general way, if you're going to deal with your spiritual self, ask about your spiritual values and whether you're honoring them. In the 25th path of intelligence, which is the path of probation, in the tree of life, the path of probation goes between the sacral, as it does in the body map, and the self center. And you cannot go up that path psychologically or esoterically in any way if you have not gone through the initiations that let go of false beliefs and those places in yourself that prevented you from being at your maximum optimal potential. What I wrote for this path is the 25th path, the intelligence of trial or probation. I am the intelligence of trial or probation, resting my life firmly upon the compassionate foundation of eternal being. Those of you here who have studied esoteric knowledge in any way probably know that you get whispers inside about things about people that you know things, and you know because you know when nobody's told you. And when you have those experiences, it is up to you to listen to them. And the part of you that says, this couldn't possibly be true, or don't believe this, needs to be recognized and needs to be listened to, and then needs to be transformed. Next, we go to channel 4629. The 4629 is the death card. It's in Scorpio. And as a card, it's in Scorpio. So in the Tree of Life, as a card delineating initiation, it's the death card. In the body map, it's a mix between the 29 in the sacral center, Leo Virgo, and the 46 in the self center, Virgo Libra. Very interesting that we have a fixed sign, a cardinal sign. Well, we have a fire sign, an air sign, and an earth sign. No water sign. But the death card itself is a water sign. Very interesting. Begin to put these disparate pieces together in your mind, because as you do, something significant spiritually will come together. Channel 4629 in the human design world says, although you have a strong sense of what's healthy for you, you sometimes compromise yourself for other people. Be self-protective. Why? The 29 is in the sacral center. But because you're a feeling, caring human being, you sometimes want to take care of other people at the expense of yourself. This card is indicating to you that you have a creative intelligence. And what I wrote for it is, I'm the imaginative, creative intelligence in a never-ending transformation of name and form. I believe, and I can't prove it, but I believe, given the path, given the card, given the astrology, and given the meaning of the hexagrams, that when we see this channel, and it's in our body map, we're being challenged to stay firm with what we know is in the higher good of ourselves and of the other, rather than rushing into the physical world, sacrificing ourselves, and perhaps the other person hasn't transformed the emotional energy sufficiently to enter into a higher dimension. The next card is the 25, the next channel is the 2551. It is a very Aries channel. It is mostly in Aries and Pisces, but way more in Aries than in Pisces. And it is the Hermit card. Virgo, very interesting, given that the hexagrams are in Aries and Pisces Aries. This is, the channel is designated, you're tuned into your creative drive and like initiating things and being first. Think about what happens when you get a message from your higher self that says, move. this is coming out of the self-center, and it's connecting with your creative intelligence. Remember, the heart center is the heart muscle itself. And that's where we take in oxygen. And that's the initiating energy of everything, including our life breath. So while we take it in, we also want to make it spiritual. You're tuned into your creative drive and like initiating and being first. Keep that in mind. It's the 20th path of intelligence, the intelligence of will. I am the intelligence of will, receiving and expressing in form, the beauty of manifesting life power. I don't know what that says to all of you, but to me, it says that before I take any action, I want to run it through my spiritual filters, and I want to know that it is serving to move my consciousness ahead. The Hermit card is rather interesting because the Hermit card is I'm looking for where I have the Hermit card, not a picture, but I don't, here it is. Really it has an innocence of exploration. I'd like to think that as we explore as scientists, I'm certainly a social scientist, and when I explore, I like to keep an open mind, because the path says that we're the intelligence of will, and we are looking for the spiritual expression of the manifesting life power. So we must be holding a beacon to ourselves that lights our path with our consciousness, and use this intelligence that comes out of the self-center and into manifestation to manifest our true values. The next is, the 1333. And the 1333 is the Emperor. Very important card. Notice that the Emperor is in Aquarius and Leo, coming out of the self-center in Aquarius, but going into the throat as Leo. And the Emperor is a tarot card that is focused on order and discipline and the synchronicity of how things occur, and the recognition that everything happens for a reason, and that while we want a linear time frame in the real world, it's really not linear, and that we need to listen behind the veil. The 1333 is definitely behind the veil. So is the 731. The 18 is behind the veil, and we get a lot of our unconscious information from the 15-gate matrix along with the 33-gate matrix. So 1333, you're an excellent listener because your depth of awareness include synchronicity and other dimensions of consciousness. Most of you who are here, and many of you have been doing readings or in the field of coaching or a help agent or healing, you know how critical listening is. One of the things I'll be talking about tomorrow in the work I do tomorrow is how important it is to think about all of these channels in terms of the four worlds, because not all communication is effective in all the worlds. In the 1333, for example, the 15th path is the constituting intelligence. So the message that I wrote was, I am the constituting intelligence, containing the limitless, to bring into creation that which can be perceived in and as form. So think about yourselves when you're with a client or listening to a loved one or a friend. When you're the listener and you have consciousness, your job is to seed the consciousness and plant images, ideas, suggestions that the other person on the other end may be able to use to expand their own consciousness. As helpers, it's never about us, it's about them. So I'm going to stop the sharing. And anybody have any questions or comments and want anything amplified? I'm more than happy to do that. If not, then I will.
Go ahead, speak up.
Hey,
Is it funky again?
I wanted to ask a question.
Okay.
So I have the gate 7, but I don't have the complete channel, and it's my personality sun. So what's the
Okay.
I wanted to just know what's the deeper understanding of.
I asked if anybody had anything, and Johnny asked if she has the 7 and not the 31, and it's her son. How does that work? Let me reassure all of you. We are and live in a multidimensional matrix. We have 64, certainly 64 energy channels. We have many more channels than that in our body, where information passes and gets coded and all of that. But if we're using the body map, which we are, you have 64 activated pathways in your body. Now, if you have one part of a channel and not the other, it doesn't mean the channel isn't active. It means it's not predisposed to respond in a certain way. If you are in a room of people, for example, you're at a conference, all of you are in the energy field of other people. Those people are influencing your energetic body. And it's very complex, but read it as though the channel comes and goes. Look at the other charts. Do you have the 31 in the emotional world? If you don't, you have it only in the mental world. And what that would mean is that you're going to look for places where you want an opportunity to lead, but you're not going to be pushy, and you're going to wait until you know. So I wouldn't recommend that you volunteer yourself to lead something all the time. Instead, make sure it's right for you. Often the spiritual dimension requires a week of waiting. So to be safe, instead of manifesting in the moment, make it a practice to wait, sleep on things, take your time, see if transits activate you, and then make a choice. Does that answer the question?
Yep, thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody else want to speak?
Dr. Eleanor, I don't know if you want to cover this today, but you know how in the 4 world or in the different 8 maps, it kind of looks like there's either a reflector presentation of a chart versus a projector version of a chart. So could you talk to kind of what that might communicate or convey?
Yes. Do I have permission to share somebody's chart?
Yeah, you can pull up mine, even with the birth details, no problem. Go for it.
Okay. Let me grab your chart. Just making it bigger so you can all see. Whoops. We need it a little smaller. Like that. Okay. A little bit. Okay, let's see. There we go. Okay. So this is Name's chart. And we can see that in her basic human design, and I always use Chiron for those of you who don't. And in Name's chart, it gives her definition between the heart center and the throat center, and then activates the ajna. But she is a split definition. If you were not using Chiron, you would say she was still a split definition projector. So she would be considered a projector, and then she loses some things. So what I'm looking at when I'm looking at a multidimensional chart is I want to look at what turns on and what turns off and which world it's in. So what you can see, and this was a big clue to me initially about how important looking at the alternate worlds were. And when I wrote the Triple Design Matrix book with Ra in 2000, I was teaching the dream rave. And it was, Ra didn't really know what the dream rave was. And I taught the first dream rave class in November of 1999. And then we both taught the class that was going to include sleep. And I presented in Sedona, we had about 100 people. And I presented the information about sleep architecture and the layers through which we move as we go through the different dimensions of sleep. And the reason I'm telling you that is that I immediately noticed a difference in the way a person perceived themselves or behaved if they were sacrally defined in their waking state, and when they slept, if they lost the sacral center. And Ra and I talked about that. And in the class we did on the dream, Ra said very specifically that unless you look at the integrated matrices, you cannot know how one world informs the other. So what we know here is that sometimes, Name, you would go to sleep thinking you had an intuition that you could act on. and you woke up in the morning and said, "What was I thinking?" True? On the other hand, when I first noticed this, I was with two women. One had the sacral and lost it. The other did not have the sacral activated and then gained it. And I said to the person who gained it when she slept, "So you go to sleep not knowing what you're going to do. And you wake up in the morning and you know exactly what you want to do." And they both said to me, "How did you know?" So when you shift consciousness, and if you're a die-hard human design person and don't want to use all of the calculations, and all you're using is what Ra gave you, which is the basic human design and the sleep design, you can still see if somebody's chart changes significantly, what difference that makes. And it makes a big difference, because when we look at Name, we see that she's somebody who can certainly take action and who is good at getting things done. But let's look at the integrated. Now, that tells a really interesting story, because that makes Name a single definition manifesting generator with quite a bit, I'm making it bigger, I think, quite a bit of energy. So whereas in the birth chart, this is combining, and let me just say that the way I got these charts, for those of you who haven't heard and don't know, Ra gave me the human design and the dream. And for the solar dream, he used 88 lunar degrees of the sun. And for the sleep, he used lunar degrees of the moon. So if we use lunar degrees of the moon and we take it the next step, which is we need the sleep design, we have the dream design, but we all, including our dogs and cats, don't just dream, they sleep. So I needed that calculation. I got that calculation using the lunar minute. It took it to the point that I could differentiate twin kittens whose birth times I had to the second. And the emotional world is the solar minute. So when I did those calculations, I ended up prenatal and postnatal, because a baby is not a neonate until 3 months of age, does not have choice, does not exercise volition. I got critical periods in human development. 3 months before birth is the third trimester. A week before the baby drops. 2 days before the mother is beginning to go into labor, hormones shift. An hour and a half, transition. Hour and a half after birth, baby breathes on its own. 2 days is attachment. The colostrum turns to milk and the mother is fully attached, or the baby's attached. A week after birth is the spiritual. In many cultures, that's when a ceremony happens and a baby is named, and they consider that the soul is now anchored. Even though some of the gates activated are not in the actual spiritual world. In fact, we have the 53, and that's it in the spiritual world for Name. But the other channels and gates that are activated behave like a transit on a day that was a critical day in her life. So it would have more of an effect and more of a rhythm in who she is than if it hadn't happened on that day at all. So I read that. And what that tells me, if I look at this birth chart, I see that she's still a split. But we go back and we say, when did Name become a manifesting generator? Whoa. She got the 46 in the prenatal mental world, and she got the 29 in the postnatal spiritual world. So I would venture a guess, Name, that you have in your past put yourself aside to take care of other people sometimes when it wasn't in your best interest. Yeah?
Yeah. Since you taught me that, I've been in a deep place of grief around that. So I'm really grateful that I now know this.
Don't be in grief. Be in initiation. That is, remember I said, look, when looking at the paths of intelligence, that these 3 central columns, 6 out of the 8 gates that go between the sacral center and the throat center are part of our Satsuma, where the DNA helix activates the Kundalini energy, breaking down false beliefs in order for us to be initiated. So because the tree of life has only one channel through, and the body map has multiple channels, we're using all 3 as the path of probation. And the 4 worlds are going to intertwine inside of you as a unified whole. And it took 3 months for you as a baby to have preferences for people, for toys, for foods, for covers, for sheets. I don't know about any of you, but I'm super sensitive to anything that touches my body. So if I'm sleeping and my sheet gets creased, I have to straighten it or I get itchy. Now I have the 15.5 and I'm a lunar generator. So I kept saying to Ra, I have the 5818, the 4816 in my human design chart. That's it. In the prenatal lunar, I get the 52.9. And when I saw that, I said, that explains it. That's why I don't manifest. I wait. So take these 8 charts that Name was so kind to create for you, and they come out of my son's program. And you notice that I had him put the astrology signs along the hexagrams so you can begin to learn them, and also so that you begin to know which channels have which signs, and you can read those as well as the gates. So let's do that a little bit. So Name, your 57th hexagram is in, it's Venus in Libra. And then the 34 is Neptune in Sagittarius. So if you put Neptune in Sagittarius together with Venus in Libra intuitively, do you learn anything about yourself?
What's coming to mind or dropping in is that I have to love, or that it takes me a while to know what I love. But once I know what I love it.
And that it's important to not commit in the moment, because Neptune in the 34 is cloudy. You know, it's a powerful gate, but when it's defined by Neptune, you may be fuzzy about whether it's right for you or not. So you have to take the time to put it through the 5818 and the 3254. Now, the 3254 is a composite channel. And you keep that channel in all your worlds. And it is it's your north node. And the 32 is striped, is Uranus. So you're always looking for how you can help people align their frequency to a spiritual frequency. And you need to do it in a way that takes care of your own physical body. The 3254 is in two worlds. So if something is in two worlds, the 54 is only in the emotional and mental world, but the 32 is in the physical world as well. So you have a bridge there between worlds. And so that's where you inform yourself as to whether or not it's right for you. Name, is that ringing true?
It is. It is. It's, you know, I hear replaying in my mind when you know what you know. And then I'm also replaying in my head your it's not selfish.
Right.
My stubbornness, or the perception of me being me as stubborn. Because I do want to eat first. I want to put the oxygen mask on me first. And then once my oxygen mask is on, it's like the gate opens and I just want to spread as much love as I can.
And then you do it, and because you're getting supported from spirit, in alignment with your higher self, it's effortless. And the key in reading is to recognize how powerful you are. In your integrated design. So when everything is working, there is no stopping you. Where's the 10 for you? Oh, postnatal lunar. And it is Mars in Capricorn. So when you take on a responsibility, where is it here? Mars in Sag. So your 10th gate is Mars in Capricorn or Sag. And that is the role you take on. So what does it tell you given its lunar?
That it's internal?
It's internal, but when you're doing something, because it's lunar and it's also solar minute, it needs to resonate with you spiritually, or you should not do it.
Yeah.
If it were in the mental world only, then I would say to you, you know, you can take on a role that is external to you because you can be a help agent in that world. But given that it's in your spiritual design, you can't be superficial. It has to have some meaning to consciousness associated with it, or you feel like you're doing yourself a disservice.
Well, and I think a great example of this that I'm tracking now, you know, my second year of being the person who makes the charts and has them ready for conference attendees, is I wanted to see other people's charts. I wanted an easy way instead of having to ask and put it in my phone and all of that. And so at the heart of it, it started with me. And then secondarily, it's, you know, I don't know all the people who are coming to the conference, and I want them to have their needs met. Maybe
And-
that's 45-21, but that's me. Like, I want the world to have what they need so that they can receive the nourishment, however that nourishment comes for them. If that's human design, great. I was a farmer for 10 years. That was my version of doing that.
Well, it's your creative intelligence, but you also have the 731 and you have the 13. And the 731 is also in the spiritual dimension. So you're tuned in to the pulse of the spirit, not so much, you know how to make it work in the real world, because look at the root between, and I call the, and I'll talk about it tomorrow, the sacral center, the splenic center to the sacral center to the ajna, I call instinct, feeling, mind. And I call the solar plexus to the sacral to the mind, the feeling instinct mind, because they're two different ways of perceiving the world. One operates mentally and makes choices in the world in alignment with what you feel. And the splenic center is pure instinct. You know because you know. You pick it up from somebody's energy. You have an intuition, or you touch a hot stove and you jump back before you even know you've touched it. So there is a PDF on my website, which, Cindy, I think we could share, on the axes of awareness. It's an important paper. And I use two examples, but that's something to pay attention to, because you want to know which world it's in. And dependent on the world, which I'll talk about tomorrow, you know which kind of skill to use from a communication standpoint or from a self-meditation standpoint. So that's a little bit of a lesson on the multidimensional perspective. Any other questions? We have about a half hour, and I'd love to open it up and know what your questions are and be able to answer them if that's acceptable. Nobody?
Hello?
Hi. Welcome,
Uh,
Isaac.
Hello, Dr. Eleanor. That was an amazing presentation, including so much knowledge of the tree of life and
Thank you.
the tarot. All that, and putting together the tarot with the astrology. It's really like next level.
Well, I'm doing that in my classes,
Mhm.
and I will continue to do it one path of intelligence at a time. So it's going to take 32 weeks, well, 64 weeks to go through the whole tree. But how has that informed how you look at a chart?
Well, I'm stuck on the timing because it's like in the 3 month period after birth where I get the 214. And in decision making, I know we all have to wait, but in looking at the noble energy map chart, I guess for me conceptualizing the period of waiting.
Um,
uh,
when that integrated map
Mhm.
was who you were when you were 3 months of age, on your 3 month birthday, 88 days after you were born. When that happened, you became your own person. That's when now in the pediatric literature, they're saying it's a baby, not a neonate. And the whole gastrointestinal system has matured. So at that point, your decision making and who you felt yourself to be has been stable ever since. When you know what you know about yourself, you know it. And that core of our being never changes. How we manifest it, how we express it, all of that changes. So use the integrated chart and look at where things turn on and off in which world, and that will give you your timing in this world. And I haven't integrated progressions astrologically yet, but my son will do that in my program down the road. So all the astrologers out there, astrology should be an integral part of our Noble Energy Map program. So Isaac, question. What additional question?
Well, it just so happens you went through the 731, which is a channel that I have in all worlds, in all time periods, and all age charts.
And the 731 is the lover card. What does that card say to you?
So what my mind drifts to my partner. Um, I mean, taking it very literal, just from looking at the word of my notes. I mean, she is my lover through dreams. She's been my lover in other dimensions, and I believe we came on this world to meet at a particular moment in time. And she's a Libra by birth, ruled by Venus, and in my seventh house is
So
ruled.
how given that that's you take it to your mate,
Mhm.
how does it inform you in terms of communication with your mate? Because it's the channel of listening, and what you see in the card is a higher spirit over the two lovers uniting them. What kind of communication does this speak of?
That's so something to deeply ponder, but I can also say right now, right off the bat, is that seems to inform me for our communications, has always been a role model of communication that I needed to put into practice. Let's say like with my mom or with friends, to like be the listener, lead that expression, then also check the energy, release what's not mine, and then proceed before, let's say, stepping into my leadership role and planting a seed of a potential hope
It's,
that they
it's,
wish to take it.
it's called the disposing intelligence. So think about what that word disposing means. It means if you're the listener, you're guiding the communication. And you want to do it in exactly the right way for the person you're listening to. So when you're talking about something like that, you want to use clean communication, spiritually oriented. Make a note. We'll be covering all the clean communication stuff in my classes. It's a very specific way of asking questions, but it turns you inward. Questions like, and Isaac, with all we just said, what do you know now? Clean question. And when you know that, is there anything else? Another clean question. So there is no input, visual, auditory, kinesthetic, when you're talking to the spirit. If you're talking to the mind, yes, regular conversation. Relationships, a little bit different communication. Does that make sense to you, Isaac?
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions?
I can say over the hour.
Okay.
Hi, Dr. Eleanor. When we have the physical chart and it says, for example, that our aura is a projector or reflector, and even though the integrated charts shows something different, physically, our aura continues being either like inviting or penetrating. Does that apply?
I don't have a formula that fits everybody. I always use the integrated charts and teach people how to use the energy between the four worlds. In my work through, I think I'm going to change my view. Okay. I changed it to the gallery view so I could see you better. So in my work with the charts and the research, I realized that we live in four worlds and that the Tree of Life talks about that. And that was not integrated into the human design. But we do a disservice to people if we don't talk about the other worlds, because I'm a clinical psychologist and I've worked with people for 50 years. And every person who came to me for therapy was in pain because their spiritual soul had not been responded to as the core in their whole life. And so people struggled to be heard, to be seen, to be known. Many of my clients felt like they didn't even belong in this world. And when people are given just one piece, not all their charts, and not even charts of who they became, I don't know how accurate our birth chart is as we age. you know, we pick up things, we learn things, we go through initiations. And it's not until we look at the tree of life that we can say, okay, we have to get rid of all the false beliefs we had and all the illusions we had to know who we really are. And I believe that the integrated chart, which shows who we are at 3 months of age and shows, you know, I originally was saying it shows that 99% of the population are manifesting generators in composite. God made us to be fulfilling our fullest potential. We're not here to sit on the sidelines and do nothing or wait for somebody to tell us what we can do. So I lowered it to 95%, thinking people are going to be upset if I say 99%. And since I don't have the hard statistics, I'll say 95%. But when Name did 140 charts, and maybe 2 of them were projectors or reflectors, that tells me that person who remains a projector or a reflector in all levels is here as a conduit. That person is a channel. And that person should have been shown as a baby that that person was seeing and feeling and knowing energy and shown how to use it in day-to-day life rather than be overwhelmed, picking up other people's energy and not knowing how to discharge it. So is that you? Do you have reflector or projector in all charts?
No,
No?
I want to a general question to help. Mhm.
So read the integrated, and if it's, and read the channels and look at the worlds and see if there's pathways in the worlds that make any definition whatsoever. There may be definitions between the worlds. And so that may be helpful in anchoring and grounding that person in their deep self. And that's always what you want to do. Anyone else? How would it be? I see we have about 10 minutes. How would it be if I take a few minutes and do a multidimensional a multiple world meditation for all of you? Yes? Okay. I think what I will do, take a moment. And go into your deep self. Close your eyes. Close your eyes, breathing in through the nose and out through the mouth. Allowing yourself to relax. To be totally within yourself. Nowhere else you need to be. And nothing else for you to be doing other than what you're doing right now. And from this place, begin to feel a surge of creative energy in the core of your being. And breathe into that energy, allowing it to just be. Maybe that energy rides on your breath. And with each inhalation, it goes more and more throughout your body, radiating from your sacral center, both up to the self and down to the root. And as it does, begin to feel as though you have a real spine, a spine that supports you, that channels your energy, that knows exactly where the energy needs to go to empower your body, to cleanse your body, so any debris, any negativity releases. And as it's releasing with each exhalation, take a journey within yourself through the gates of the self center. Imagine that you are a divinely creative being who can, at will, ask for and receive inspiration. And as that thought comes to you, I am the uniting intelligence, carrying the truth of the one self into manifesting form by living, knowing it is thy, not my will be done. And as that takes root in you, you know that you are the sensible intelligence, living in truth of the one self. As you express and align in your manifesting life. And as you imagine that you can manifest your heart's desire, you also know that you are faithful to being an expression of the divine, and that that divine presence that you feel in the I am that is you has the courage to inspire other beings with your consciousness. And you never run out. You have a renewing intelligence that is separate from any false beliefs, including that you're limited in who you are and how you are. And you are able to express yourself with perfect balance when you know your limitations. But you also know and feel inside yourself that you have risen to so many challenges in your life. And you know that you've come out of them more trusting, more empowered, more enlightened, and more able to balance what's right for you. And that balance that you have to do so that you continue to have creative intelligence that you never run out of. And you do that by setting some limitation. And the limitation that you set is a limitation based on your physiology. It's based on your life circumstance. And you take that in deep into yourself. and you know that you can create and manifest absolutely perfectly everything that you take the time, the energy, and the patience to take inside yourself, to be in meditation quietly with no one around you other than your animals who enhance your sense of self, all alone in your own space, knowing who you are, knowing what you are, a divine being, an electromagnetic body, a living, breathing being here on a mission that you are fulfilling to the best of your ability and graciously and kindly talking to yourself about yourself. And from this place here, wiggle your fingers and toes, breathe into your body, come back to the room, fully awake, alert, with a deeper sense of self and a mission to manifest who you are in the world. Thank you all. I hope I see many of you tomorrow. I'll be talking about the 4 worlds. Take care.